uh, early that morning, and we had different plans. We knew the routes that we were going to take. Now, we didn't know the outcome, but we were persistent, said, well, it does not matter. We're going to make a change, not only for us, but for the citizens in Columbia and our future generations.
The students who gathered at Zion Baptist Church on March 2nd, 1961, were really in the process of continuing a social protest that had been building up in Columbia throughout the early 1960s. Many of them had already been involved in marches through towns and communities. Many had been involved in sit-in movements at lunch counters and theaters and in bus stations. Many of them had already undergone nonviolent direct training by the NAACP, and yet they remained still quite dissatisfied. Even though Brown v. Board of Education occurred in 1954, they still saw the signs of injustice and discrimination everywhere.
We couldn't use facilities downtown. We didn't have any jobs available downtown. We didn't have what we knew and termed as equal rights in any aspect of downtown, in the downtown area, and the Columbian in general. But we said, this has to stop.
So that video clip was about what will become known as the Supreme Court case Edwards versus South Carolina. Today, March 2nd, is the anniversary of when in 1961, police right here in Columbia, South Carolina, arrested 187 Black students who were protesting peacefully in downtown Columbia. Now, this particular case, Edwards v. South Carolina, would become a landmark case on the importance of both the First and 14th Amendments to the Constitution, when the Supreme Court ruled that the police acted erroneously. They did not have the right to arrest these Black students simply because they were protesting for something that was unpopular in South Carolina. And so, ladies and gentlemen, contrary to popular belief, there have been some good things that have come out of South Carolina regarding the Constitution. And Edwards v. South Carolina from 1961 is one of those cases. And today, March 2nd, just so happens to be the anniversary of that particular moment of arrest near the State House ground. I think there's no better way for me to welcome all of you to the Modjeska Simkins School of Human Rights session for the year 2024. I am Dr. Robert Green II, the lead instructor for the session this year. And on behalf of the South Carolina Progressive Network, I want to welcome you and thank all of you for joining us this lovely Saturday afternoon. So we're going to go ahead and start welcomes first.
Purpose and mission.
And what we want to do first is really give you a sense of what the school and what the Progressive Network is actually all about. Now, the South Carolina Progressive Network purpose is to recruit and develop individual and organizational members to support the Education Fund's policy work, our school, and cultural and educational activities. The network's job is to provide meaningful opportunities to recruit and retain members for the long haul. As Brett Bursey said, I really believe that our most important job is pulling together a community of shared values that is rewarding and fun, and that will grow and be self-sustaining. To quote the great Simkins, after whom our school is named, ladies and gentlemen, this is no sitting down time. And of course, as we all know, in 2024, there are a lot of things for all of us to stand up for and to fight against, and also, more importantly, fight for. And our hope with the Modjeska Simkins School is that we'll be able to give you at least some tools with which to make some incredible change in the communities around all of us. So I want to get into our protocols as well, right? And the thing about the Modjeska Simkins School is we're going to be hearing from all of you about why you're joining the school this particular year. But we really want to get into what the school's about and some of the protocols. And so for both the folks in the room and also for the folks on Zoom, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen once again and go over these protocols with all of you. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to go over is where to actually find the class schedule, the readings, and other resources for the school. They can all be found at modjeskaschool.com. All right. We want to make sure you're following along with the schedule closely, because under each class heading, you'll find the readings for that particular week and other class materials as well. Also, students in the school will receive an email each week with a password protected study guide and a link to join on Zoom. Again, I think it's worth noting that I've been doing the Modjeska School since 2019. In March of 2020, I believe we were actually in this very room. It was my last time in a physical classroom space until I think October of that same year. So the Modjeska Simkins School has been on the cutting edge, often with no other choice, in terms of providing hybrid and Zoom options for education for our classes. Number two, speaking of which, we record all of the classes and post them at modjeskaschool.com after each session. If you happen to miss a class for whatever reason, make sure to view the recording on your own time so you can keep up with the class materials and kind of stay aware of where we are in the class. If attending in person, feel free to bring snacks and beverages to share. Students with older children or grandchildren are, of course, welcome to bring them as well. And if you happen to bring me a snack or a beverage, you will become my very best friend. Number four, this is important to note, especially as we get into some very controversial topics and topics of history that can be a bit jarring to our contemporary sensibilities. Be aware that the faculty and guest presenters may use language that can be a bit challenging in modern times. We do not censor the historical and contextual use of harsh realities and offensive language. We believe that these terms convey the grim reality of our history. The study of South Carolina's history and mores that built white supremacy does not provide a safe space for authentic conversations. Concepts, words, and images that may trigger deep emotional responses will be discussed in context. And again, those last two words are important, in context. The language and the imagery we're using in the Modjeska School is not for shock value. It's not to scare anyone. It's not to surprise anyone. It is, however, to give you a sense not only of the past challenges we face in this state, but of the present and future challenges we'll be facing as well. And again, I can tell you as a professor of history at Claflin University too, my students are often also exposed to some of this language, some of these images, and it's important for all of us to understand the stakes of what we're learning about in the Modjeska Simkins School of Human Rights. Now, for the folks who are on Zoom, just a quick few rules for you guys as well. Please display your first and last name. A photo of yourself would also be quite helpful in identifying you on Zoom. When you're speaking up, please make sure to turn your camera on. We do want to see you as you're talking. We want to be able to put a face to the name on Zoom. I can tell you that teaching these last few years, both in the Modjeska Simkins School and at Claflin, doing a variety of guest lectures, it's difficult to make those person-to-person interactions and connections with a black screen. So we definitely want to see you if possible and want to get to know you virtually as well. Make sure that if you're posing any questions or comments in the chat, to keep those questions or comments relevant to the class discussion for that particular evening. If you have any questions, please direct them to me or to the guest presenter we have in the chat, or you're welcome to use the raise hand function in Zoom to do much of the same thing. And finally, throughout the session, we are always happy to answer any of your questions. Make sure to email us at network@scpronet.com, or you can call the office at the number on the screen. 803-808-3384. But again, all of this can be found online. If you look under the Modjeska Simkins School Spring Session, class protocols, and you'll find those protocols there. I can assure you, however, there will not be a quiz on these protocols because you guys are all adults, so I will not have to treat you the way I treat my students in class. But I digress. Okay, I'm kidding. I don't do the pop quiz thing. I hate those when I was a student, so I will not give any pop quizzes unless I have to. All right.
Thank you, class one.
Yeah, and speaking of which, let's go to class one real quick. If you look at the class schedule, click on class one.
Shoot that photo.
And of course,
The class schedule shows you the whole year, and then you have to slide over. It's a bit funky.
yeah, and so this will show you what's under class one, which is coming up this Monday.
And see, it's protected. That's because it knows Dr. Green. You people will have to know the password. And the password is, and then we have to like tell everybody how to use the password. Mod School, MODSCHOOL. Is that right?
24.
Oh, Mod School 24.
Oh, lowercase.
Yes, it's in the 2 emails that were sent recently, but yes, it's a lowercase and the passcode will be the same for all of the readings throughout the semester, so you don't have to keep dredging that up.
Now, one thing I want to point out with class one, and this is actually part of our larger mission with the Modjeska Simkins School of Human Rights, is that we are not beginning our history with the state of South Carolina. We are not even starting with the colony of Carolina. We are actually starting with indigenous history. We want to make it clear to folks in the room and folks on Zoom that when you're talking about the history of South Carolina, it does not begin with European exploration of this region of North America. It begins well before that. And so we're going to spend some time with anthropologist Chris Judge, who'll be talking a bit about the history of the indigenous peoples who lived in what will become known as South Carolina. And then after that, I will give a brief lesson on the history of African peoples before they were brought to the New World. Again, as is the case with indigenous history, we want to start the history of Africans before slavery. History of peoples of African descent does not begin when they were brought in chains to the Americas and to the Caribbean. It begins well before that. So you'll be getting just morsels of both of those lessons this coming Monday. Again, giving you a sense of what the class is all about. When we're talking about a people's history of South Carolina, which is what is at the heart of the Modjeska Simkins School of Human Rights, that people's history means we are not just talking about the bigwigs of South Carolina history, not just talking about the John C. Calhouns or the Ben Tillmans or the James Burns or the Strom Thurmans. In many cases, we're talking about the men and the women of South Carolina who were often ignored in popular textbooks, but the very same people who were the very ones who actually made this state what it is today through their own blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice. And this is what this class is all about. But we will not leave out the Ben Tillmans and the John C. Calhouns and the James Burns and the Strom Thurmans, because they are also really important to the story of this class as well. After all, you want to be able to know your enemy, and certainly folks like Burns and Thurman and others constitute what we're talking about in terms of enemies of progress and genuine democracy in South Carolina. Okay. And by the way, if you look at class one, it will also mention some of the deeper dive discussions we're doing in Sundays to come. We're talking more about those in just a moment. Brett, do you want to add?
The deeper dives are something that we bring in somebody that knows a particular element that we're talking about in the school. And we've been really blessed to find teachers whose dissertation is on that particular topic, your PhD dissertation. On the first Sunday that we have a dive is not up here. It's the 10th. And that person, we have to arrange things to meet their schedule. But the woman at the first dive is somebody that I encountered finding out about a book report, a book presentation that she did at Oxford University 2 years ago, Oxford in England. And her book is The Origins of Capitalism in Colonial South Carolina, put out by Columbia University. And it talks about before there was a country here, the strongest, the richest place in the nation, which wasn't a nation yet, was Charleston, because of the slave economy. And so it kind of unpacks that beginning that you'll see is a continuum through the entire history of not just South Carolina, but the United States. And that influence of white supremacy and ownership. And so the deeper dives are there. You can still learn what we teach in the Modjeska school during those 14 classes on Monday, but the deeper dives are embellishment, icing on the cake, and they're really exciting. And so those will be posted on the website also.
Fantastic. So Brett, did you want to go into the Roe v. Campbell?
Yeah, let me do that, and then I'll introduce you and we'll for the students. Because I will say this because Chris is going to bring me up the Roe v. Campbell.
I can pull it up on my.
Yeah, what I wanted to do was to talk about connecting the dots. I'm going to talk about meeting Miss Simkins and the dots that she helped me connect. Modjeska was born in 1899, and her mother was a founding member of the Niagara movement in 1905 with the boys. And so Modjeska was raised, well, she wasn't raised next door. She was raised out on Main Street in the country on a piece of property. Her father was a very well-positioned, well-trained, and well-hired brick mason who had made a lot of money. They started a bank in 1921, Victory Savings Bank. It was one of the few black banks that made it through the Depression. Started it with a $2,500 deposit. And that bank was very instrumental in helping people get through those Jim Crow days they were living in at the time, where if you got out of line, they cut off your, whatever credit you might have, they wouldn't sell you seeds for your farm, or they would foreclose on your whatever. And so the bank was a very progressive element within the black community. And Ms. Simkins moved into that house next door in 1936. And she was living there in 1992 when she passed away at 91. And I had the opportunity to meet her when I opened a bank account, the first bank account that I opened for a work collective. We had a woodworking work collective that I got involved in after I got out of serving 2 years in prison. We were protesting the war in Vietnam. And that I met Ms. Simkins at the bank. She was my teller. And we became really fast friends. And we'll unpack as we move through the eras how that happened and why Ms. Simkins was isolated from the polite black community. And it has to do with the fact that she and I were ideological kin woven from the same fabric and had the same analysis about power and the way to deal with it. And so one of the things is connecting the dots of history. I did not know about what much of the things that Modjeska did in the past. I was young and looking at the present and the future. And it's only been after she passed that I started working on building the school that I kept finding out things I didn't know. And I was angry at myself for not asking those questions. And I had the occasion in 20, I had the century right at least, in 2014 to be speaking at Tulane. It was a gathering of executive directors of voting rights groups in the South. And that is the Supreme Court had just struck down that really critical component of the Voting Rights Act that said that the old states of Confederacy that had, a racist history in voting had to have any change in the voting law pre-cleared by Justice Department before it went into effect. And the Supreme Court issued a ruling, I think it was in 2013, a ruling came out that said that, well, we got a black president, we're post-racial now, we don't have a problem with racism, you don't have to have things pre-cleared anymore. And so that was a lie, but I was speaking at Tulane about with my colleagues from these southern states that I've done for many years, a lot of us. And it was not a happy time. And my closing remark was, I just want to leave you with what my mentor told me when somebody asked her, how do you keep doing this decade after decade? And she said, well, I guess I'm just selfish because it makes me feel good. The bottom line there is I'm doing what I'm doing and have been doing for decades for me. I figured out that's what I'm here for. for is to leave the place better than I found it, then that makes me a better human being. We teach effective citizenship. I want to live effective humanity. I want to also share lessons and all, and you share with me how you feel that you're being a good human and taking advantage of this incredible miracle that we stand on. And so these dots that I didn't get to connect had to do with this person coming up to me after I said that. He said, I know who your mentor was. I said, who? He said, Modjeska Simkins. I said, how do you know that? He said, I did my PhD dissertation on a conference you organized in Columbia in 1946. It took me over a year to figure out why this conference that had delegates from South Africa and South America had in Township Auditorium that only holds 2,500 people, and there were nearly 5,000 people with speakers outside. W.E.B. Du Bois gave the keynote. Paul Robeson was there. Julian Bond's father brought Julian as a young child. Julian Bond's father was a student in Atlanta. Angela Davis's mother was there from Birmingham. There were 170 white delegates at a time when it was illegal for white people and black people to be on the same floor. My God, why was this in Columbia, South Carolina? And I'm not going to tell you now. You're going to have to stay with the Modjeska School, and you could read Becky's book if somebody hold one up. Craig, pick up one of the History Denied books if you see one back there. All the students get copies of the books that Becky has put together with great effort. That the one that Craig has, and that's History Denied, and it's pretty much about, it starts anyway, dealing with that fact that something that is so profound that the entire world was watching it. Why was it in Columbia, South Carolina? And the book that was held up next to her, that Generation No picks up later in the mid-60s and carries it through of people that did things here in this state that had a world impact that nobody knows about.
Just say that there's a 2-page spread that's got details about the Edwards case that we talked about earlier and its connection to GROW and its connection to the Occupy movement. So.
Yeah, so I don't want to let all the air out of my balloon about the secrets we're going to teach you in the school. You might not come back. But I did want to connect the dot here that I was involved in that followed from, let's go back to the GROW. What are you doing?
Yeah, I got you.
This business of understanding what came before you to make you more able to understand what's happening to you now and to have a strategy that helps you improve the future is predicated on knowing what came behind you. This is from 1988, and that's me, but that's a sign. Go back to the sign. That sign there says, "Remember Vietnam, keep South Carolina National Guard out of Central America." Now you remember that the Edwards v. SC case was about 187 young people being arrested on the State House grounds, on public property. And the Supreme Court said, well, you can't arrest somebody for being on public property unless they're doing something illegal. If they're the public, that's their property. We've got permission to put that sign up when Carroll Campbell was governor. And what was happening then is Carroll Campbell was sending the National Guard to the border of Honduras to put pressure on the Nicaraguan revolution. This was after US Congress passed an order that we could not destabilize the democratically elected Nicaraguan Sandinista government. And so the federal government couldn't do it. So the right-wing governors were sending their troops to the border of Honduras. Where are the right-wing governors sending their troops now?
The border of the states.
Somebody?
Down in Texas.
Texas, yeah. And I'm surprised that McMaster hadn't sent our troops down there. But this is not what your state guard's for. And so we put this sign up. Well, we got permission to put the sign up. It was a time, some of you are old enough to remember the big United Way sign they put up in front of the Confederate Memorial, and people gave money and the thermometer kept going up. A 501c3, which we were since 1978, a nonpartisan organization, could make an application, have their sign made professionally with a 4x8 thing with post-it this that drop right down in the holes where they put the signs up. We did all that, submitted it, got permission to put the sign up, and we went to put the sign up. And the guys that were working the ground crew said, you can't put your sign up. So why? Well, we changed the rules. I said, when? They said, this morning. And we smelled something fishy and started looking into it. And at the time, 4 of the 9 members of the Budget and Control Board were Democrats. So there was not a consensus, and we could talk to the Democratic members, and with the position of the Budget and Control Board that said they changed the rules, they changed them for aesthetics. They changed them because they were afraid somebody could be driving down Assembly Street and see the sign and crash, where they could fall over and crush a small child. And surely the content of the sign had nothing to do with it. And we didn't believe that, nor did the 4 Democrats that were on the Budget Control Board, who said we had 8 meetings trying to talk the governor out of banning that sign. You can't ban that sign. Best you could come off with is ban all signs. So they banned all signs. And we had them in federal court not long after, using Denver's ESC as a precedent, and we won. We won. Now you can go to the next page. $50,000 check that I'm handing Mr. Truesdale in front of our building down in Olympia at the time. The judge, Carol Campbell, came in and testified, lied through his teeth. I don't think, man, we lost. There was a happy-faced judge, lawyer, lying to the people. And as soon as he walked out, the Karen Henderson, the federal judge, said, I would be remiss at this point if I did not issue a directed verdict of guilty. The parties have until 10 o'clock in the morning to have a settlement on my desk. And the ACLU lawyer called and said, we paid 50 grand. I guess so. And so the real good news carry away from this is we used $35,000 of that to buy our first new printing press. We started a print shop in '81. That newsletter you just saw, I printed, and these fingers ran a printing press for nearly 30 years. Because back in the day, there was no grant money, and we made our money the old-fashioned way. We earned it. We had a cafe, a print shop, a newspaper, and we worked hard to support our social justice habit. But that printing press was named the Carol Campbell Memorial Frequency. It printed propaganda for years for South Carolina progressive groups. And it finally, it had a computer on it, which is not progress actually. And we couldn't get it fixed, and it was obsolete. And we had been dealing with a company that picked up things that were obsolete in America and shipped them overseas. And so our printing press is now in some small village in India. And so we have another clip there. Yeah, this is another instance that was in what year, Becky?
2011.
2011. So 89, 99. 20 years after the Grover Campbell. Damn near around there. This is the Occupy on the State House grounds in 2011. And these are friends and neighbors of ours. And the governor passed an edict saying that nobody could be on the grounds after 6 o'clock, and that they were going to all be arrested if they were. And the argument was, you can't do that. It's public property. And so the governor did indeed arrest how many people? 11 people, Becky?
I think it was 19.
Okay, anyway, hopefully there's a story somewhere you can read
You
about.
can go to our blog. If you go to the network's website, scpronet.com, you can find the link to our blog, which has, it's got a pretty good search engine. You can put Occupy in there and it'll pull up all the, you can follow it over there. I might be wrong about 19. It may be 11. You might be right about
Be it as it may, some brave people, I decided not to be arrested and let the youngins get busted. It was a driving rainstorm, started right when they started arresting people. And they were right in front of between the Confederate Monument and the State House grounds and the Capitol. And that the case, Grover Campbell and Edwards versus FC were the predicates that got them $10,000 apiece, and told Nikki Haley she was wrong. And that part of that was based on the rules that we wrote for the State House after we won the Grover Campbell suit, that says you do not have to have permission to use the State House grounds or public property. And you cannot be arrested or thrown off unless you're doing something illegal. They can't just throw people off because they don't like them, what they're doing. And so we made a precedent that continues to be enforced. We spend a lot of time helping people, including policemen, understand what our rights as citizens are. And so what I wanted to do now was to recognize who we've got in the room that is making all this happen. And you've heard Becky speak. That's Becky Robbins, and she's actually the brains of the operation. And she's started working with us in 1990 when she had finished her master's work at the University of Journalism and was working for the Bar Association. And she wrote a newsletter piece for them about South Carolina being the only state in the nation that didn't allow anonymous testing for AIDS. 1990, there were a lot of people dying from AIDS. And the more people that didn't get tested, the more people died. So South Carolina had this brilliant idea to make people that get tested. We'll tell everybody, if you got tested in South Carolina, they call your employer, your school, your family, friends, neighbors. So obviously people weren't getting tested. The Bar Association wouldn't print it for this reason that all the politicians were afraid of the Christian Coalition. As we move through time, in the 1990s, we'll unpack how the Christian Coalition, which I refer to as the Tea Party on Jesus, they took over, and you had to be a member of the Christian Coalition to be elected. And so that they didn't, Becky stormed down to the Grow building where we had a newspaper, and we ran it in our paper. Becky checked in and she never found the exit sign or the door. So she's been with me for, I don't know how long ago that was, a long time. And full disclosure, we've been married for, I would say, 17.
How long, Brett?
17. 18 years.
It's confusing.
Not long enough.
It's just confusing because we shacked up for a long time before we made it. So, been a long time.
But Becky has really done a marvelous job. And when you read things, I want you to appreciate that it's really well written. And everybody should get a copy of all 5 books before you leave. And I see one of our board members. Is Anson still back there? Yeah. There he is. Anson, stand up and wave at people. And Anson is.
Yes, very good. Yes, I'm with United Campus Workers, you can see here. Also a board member of the Progressive Network and graduate of the Modjeska Simkins School of 2023. And honored, proud to be here with y'all and another wonderful session. Looking forward to it. Yes, very good.
I'm not, there's any other board members here I can't see, and I know that they've all done this before and they didn't have to come. And so I wanted to, you've met Dr. Green and Chris Gardner. Stand up, Chris. Chris Gardner's been with us. He's been at every school since Zoom began. And Chris is a professional musician of great acclaim and handles our jazz night here, the first and third Thursdays at 8 to 10 that I encourage people to attend. And so thank you, Chris. And who's that? Who's that guy right there?
That's Brandon.
Brandon. Well, I've been looking for somebody to take my place for, I guess I'm 75 now, so at least for 10 years. I found something I wrote in 2014 saying what we needed, we're going to have to start a school to teach somebody because there's no proving ground here to learn what it is that I've been doing. And then we're going to have to raise a whole bunch of money because nobody can do it for the type of money that Becky and I have been making for the last 50 years. We've somehow our dollars are worth more because we've been holding on to them for a long time and know how to spend them. And we don't have any children. But Brandon Upson, stand up. Brandon is the incoming interim director. When the Vulcan mind meld is finished, probably after we know whether we have an autocracy or a continuation of the duopoly on November 5th this year. Becky and I will scurry off into the woods and Brandon will be in charge. And I'm going to focus just on the Modjeska School. And so that's my mission, my goal and all is to focus on the educational work and leave this forward-facing activity to the youngins. And Jason Belton, is you in the room? Stand up, Jason. And Jason is our Director of Field Organizing. That's a title that we came up with yesterday. We have both Jason and Brandon signed up with the Southern Partners Fund on a series of training for people coming in to do leadership in 501c3s. Because the more effective you get, the more heat you face, and you really do need to know the rules and to be able to know how to get away with things. That's right. And so that's what I have to say. And I was hoping that you can now lead introductions of the students. And we have about 45 people here. If everybody gets 2 minutes, that's 90 minutes, an hour and a half.
All right. Okay. So again, the Modjeska Simkins School only exists because of you, the students. And we are, of course, happy and pleased to see you all here, whether it's in person or virtually on Zoom. And again, how we want to handle introductions is please tell us who you are, tell us where you're from, and perhaps most importantly, tell us why you're taking the Modjeska Simkins School, whether it's for simple curiosity, whether it's to become a more engaged citizen, whether it's to become a better activist, or if you're here from the FBI. Just tell us whatever reason you are here to join us. And again, in 2 minutes or less, please. So while we want to hear from you, we do not need your entire Citizen Kane life story. So we're gonna go ahead. This is gonna be interesting. We got a lot of people. We're gonna start with the folks here in the room first, and then transition to the folks on Zoom after that. So what I'd like to do is to actually start right. I feel like I'm back in college. Person to start.
We have that list of the people that need to leave early, which Jason has, and Jason's gonna hand it to Robert.
Okay, let me get that. That will make things a bit simpler. All right, thank you very much. And by the way, as you're speaking, please make sure to speak up so that the microphones in the room can pick you up, that the folks on Zoom can hear you as well. So I'm gonna, if I call your name, please again, go ahead and tell us who you are, where you're from, and what brings you to our school this year. And I'm going to start with Renee Gardner.
I'm Renee Gardner. I'm Chris's mom. I am from originally Virginia. I've lived in Columbia, South Carolina since 1989. I'm attending the school because Chris attended years ago and encouraged me to attend the class, but every year it seemed like I was involved in some activity that prevented my participation. So this year I find I have some free time and I want to hurry up and take it since we have a very important election coming up. I have old brain, short-term memory is not so good, and when I'm engaging with folks, I would like to articulate my viewpoint or how I feel like the country should go. I'm hoping that I'll get better at communicating.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the Justice School. Up next, and again, please, if I get your name wrong, feel free to correct me. Up next is Brandon Upson.
Well, you said that right. So I'm Brandon Upson. I'm originally from Aiken, South Carolina. Went to the College of Charleston and lived there for about 7 years. And now my wife and our children, I might have seen them with the dog outside. We live in Tigakay. So I'm here at the school, not just because of the transition we have with me coming in, but most importantly, if you don't know where you've been, there's no way that you can chart a course for where you're going. And the foundation that this school provides goes beyond just a history lesson, but it goes into the work that we're doing for advancing the progressive movement, creating real substantive and sustained change, and educating folks so that we can be the beacons of light that we want to be. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you very much. Up next is Nalanka Sinevarante.
Really close. Hi, everybody. I'm Nalanka Sinevaretna. I was born and raised here in Columbia. Recently returned about 2 years ago. Spent much of my career in DC working on supporting peace building and conflict resolution work internationally. Now here in focus domestically, working with a group trying to connect like the network nodes of the peace building, the social justice, and the democracy communities in order to prevent authoritarianism here in the United States. So this is part of me just like getting to know my state even better than I did before. So thanks.
Fantastic. Welcome. Okay, up next is Sandy Robbins.
That's me. And for those people who are behind me, forgive me because I do have a problem due to some surgical issues, but I'm Sandy Robinson. I'm from Lancaster, South Carolina, originally from Baltimore, Maryland. And I am delighted to be here. And I am here because of all the things that Dr. Green said, starting with I'm an FBI agent. So, but nonetheless, I'm actually here because I really want to become more aware of all of the intricate things that have taken place in our past. And as the young man said, if you don't know where you're coming from, how do you know where you're going? And I have 2 small grandchildren, and I want to be as equipped as possible to start to make sure I'm leaving a platform and a legacy of knowledge for them to become better people, better citizens who will advocate for all people. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Up next, Irene Raxter Rigby.
My name is Irene, and I am from a little place in Anderson County called Slabtown. I wanted to do this class because I got very jealous last year when my husband was taking this class. And I was watching the baking championship, and he was just having too much fun in the next room. And so I told him this was my year. And I want to do this because I come from ancestry that was not so good when it comes to race and race relations. And I want to be a better person for that reason. And I want my line to be a better line. I want my life to be a life that is full. And I believe this school will make my life full.
Okay, up next is Cecil Rigby. And by the way, if you are a returning student to the class, just tell us a bit about why you're returning to the class. Cecil, go ahead.
I'm Cecil, and I'm returning because there was absolutely no way for me to absorb everything in the first session. There is so much to this class to learn. And the fun she's referring to me having was cursing. I would have to turn off my microphone on Zoom. It's like, really? We did that? You know, I'm really grateful to this school for opening my eyes and giving me another chance to participate again, to learn even more and become more effective citizen advocate, all the things we talk about. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
If people could stand up and speak up, the people in Zoom land only see a small screen and you can't tell who's talking. So stand up and be visible. Stand up and be counted.
All right, up next is Jason Belton.
Put me behind Cecil, okay? I believe in legacy, y'all, and you know, I believe a lot of these other histories and fellowships are watered down. They don't tell you the truth. They hide a lot. So I love what I've heard about the school, and I want to be a part of the change. So in order to be a part of the change, I need to learn. So I'm here to absorb, not only from the teachers, but you all as well. So I'm here.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad that he said that, because I think one of the reasons I enjoy doing the school every year is how much I learn from the students themselves, between the questions that students pose, the comments they also pose, whether in person or chat. Again, the Modjeska Simkins School of Human Rights really embodies the best ideas and the best ideals of a teaching pedagogy where we all learn from each other. It's not just me lecturing to you, it is us having a thorough and really sometimes fun conversation about American, global, and South Carolina history. All right, up next is Betty Hines. Betty Hines.
I'm Betty Hines, and I'm a returning student. As I stand here today, I'm trying to make it short. I went to a convention this morning, And, I took, this Tootsie Hollis with me last week. I think a lot of y'all know her. She's not, and she introduced me to Modjeska Simkins School. She's not here today, so when I went this morning, it's on the man about Tootsie. And when I come here again, it's on my man about Tootsie, because she was a social justice advocate. I learned so much from Tootsie. I came here and I learned so much from the school, and I graduated last year. There's so much to learn. As I look at the world today and all the things that are happening, I see history repeating itself. If you don't, and I learned a lot from this school to be able to identify what's being repeated. So, like Brandon said, Mr. Brandon said, if you don't know where you come from or what's going on in the past, where are you going? I made the links, I made the connections. So I enjoyed the school. I'm back again and remember of myself and of my ancestors' entrance.
Up next is Keith Ray Senior.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Keith Gray Senior. I'm returning for the third time because, as some people have observed, you can't absorb all of this. And they do cover other additional material. Highly recommend the deep dives. I try to make those. And reason why? I grew up in white bread South and did not, other than seeing the signs, colored whites only, did not have a clue of how embedded and ingrained that this racism has been. And the more I find out, the more she said, connecting the dots. And again, want to be able to be an effective warrior and an effective educator of my offspring so that they don't blunder through life without knowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Alan Sattler.
Hi, Alan Sattler, and I'm also from Lancaster. This will be my second time monitoring this class. And to repeat what Keith said, there's always something new to learn. We have some new special people will come in for the deep dives and things like that today. And they have their own way of seeing things. That's great. So I first came to South Carolina in 1987. I have lived here more than half my life, so I consider myself a naturalized South Carolinian. Basically, I came here and I'm thriving here. So I want to be able to help pass that on, and we are working to increase our local participation in the Modjeska Simkins School. We have 3 new students from Lancaster this year. And I feel great about that. So thank you.
It's funny you mentioned being a naturalized citizen of South Carolina. I'm originally from the great state of Georgia, which, as we all know, has no history of racism or discrimination. But since moving to South Carolina in 2012, this place has really become my home. And I know this because my mother once told me, "You really think you're a South Carolinian now, don't you?" And I said, I guess I do, you know, and that's one of the reasons that I love doing this school, because I think this state, as many problems as it's had over the years, as many problems as it has now, when I teach this course every year, I see the potential for good in this state as well, each and every person in the classroom and on Zoom. Up next is Gabby Zerlo. Gabby Zerlo.
That's me. I'm Gabby. I'm from North South Carolina, which is actually in the middle of the state. It's in Orangeburg County. And coming from Orangeburg County, I've worked and lived in rural, vulnerable populations my entire life. And spent a lot of that time wanting to get out of that area. And growing up and becoming an adult, I realized that nobody was coming to save North South Carolina and Orangeburg County. And very happy to find that there was a place already here embedded in the history fighting the fight from the time of history to now, teaching me how to be more effective, to make real changes and things like that. So, me.
Excellent. Up next is Hillary Taylor.
Hi, friends.
Hi.
My name is Hillary Taylor. I am from Columbia. I presently live in Greenville. I'm a United Methodist minister. I'm also the executive director of South Carolinians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. I am here for many of the reasons that have already been said. I'm here to reckon with my family history. I'm here to learn more about South Carolina in order to change it. But I'm also here because of my job. I had an intern who was at the time the youngest graduate of the Modjeska Simkins school. And then I had a board member who forwarded me the application and said, hey, have you thought about this? And I said, actually, yes, I have. And I hope to make friends so that we can abolish the death penalty too, because unfortunately, the death penalty is a pretty rotten part of our history for lots of discriminatory, racist, classist, ableist reasons. So thank you all for having me.
Up next is Josh Dunn.
That's me. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Dunn. I am here because Chris Gardner told me to be. And then also, I think, you know, on a selfish level, just for my own sanity, to be in a room full of people who are committed to truth. Because I think, you know, I work at USC, where sometimes I feel like I'm living in a parallel universe where nothing bad is happening and no one around me will talk about anything, and they'll kind of give me a side glance if I do start talking about things. And so it's that, and it's because I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, and I believe in Columbia, South Carolina, I always have. And so looking for that legacy, yeah, and figuring out, you know, like what is good here and what can I take from it. So thank you.
Josh, I can tell you as someone who earned his PhD at USC, I can tell you that I was in a parallel universe within a parallel universe. So I can certainly sympathize with you there. Okay, up next, I believe this is Michelle Dunlap Thompson, or is it Mikey Dunlap Thompson?
It's Michelle.
Michelle, okay.
Yes, so thank you for this space. I'm Michelle Dunlap Thompson. Originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, now spending a lot of time here in South Carolina, doing some organizing on behalf of Jobs with Justice. So I would definitely love to connect with all of you all. But I also, I'm taking the course because in spaces such as these, I pay homage to my ancestors, for those that were beaten, just for being able to read. And unfortunately, the way that society is going, we don't know how much longer we'll be able to occupy these type of spaces. And so I'm honored to be here. And in order to organize in any area, you have to know the lay of the land. And so this is that first step, learning about the lay of the land. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us. We are certainly honored to have you with us as well. Up next is Craig Conwell. Craig,
Good afternoon, I'm Craig Conwell. Real quick, first thing I want to say, I'm going to quote from, that's attributed to Malcolm X, but it was actually from his teacher, Elijah Muhammad. It said, history is above all our studies the most attractive and best qualified to reward our research, as it develops the springs and motives of human actions and displays the consequence of circumstances which operates most powerfully on the destinies of human beings. I'm here because I want to operate most powerfully on the destinies of human beings. Being a native of South Carolina, growing up in Horry County in Conway, South Carolina, I'm very familiar with the racist tendencies of South Carolina. And as an individual who has grown up in that and around it and among it, I am pledging my life to make sure that I eradicate it with others who have like minds, and also the geopolitical dynamics that exist in the world today. If we don't stand up against it and voice our concerns, then our silence will be complicitness in what is happening in our world. So I am committed to never allowing myself to be a victim of somebody else's agenda. And I implore all of us to do the same and have courage be courageous, be faithful, but do it in love, but in strength.
If that doesn't get you fired up. Yeah, right now. If you're ready to go, then I don't know what to tell you. All right, again, thank you for that. I think that was inspiring to everyone. Now we can go to school. All right, up next is DJ Triafi.
I'm Vijay Tripathi. I'm also from Columbia, South Carolina, born and raised. I graduated from USC last year. I'm an organizer for the state for Starbucks Workers United. And I'm here to add a historical context to how previous organizing has happened throughout the state to make better strategic decisions of how we organize labor throughout the entire state. Being the lowest union density state in the entire country, we have a lot of work to do here and the state that is the most.
Next is Taylor Simon. Taylor Simon.
Hi everyone, I am Taylor Simon. I just opened a online and pop-up bookstore called Liberation is Lit, where we prioritize selling books by Black, Indigenous people of color, queer, trans, and disabled writers. And the mission of my bookstore is really to be community-centered, oriented, and have people come together to learn about how to make their worlds and their communities better places through the power of reading and storytelling. So I'm here because definitely learning, looking to learn more about organizing, South Carolina history, and how I can take all of that and working for like programs and to better my bookstore for the community.
Before we go on, Taylor, are you taking any book donations?
I am.
I will have some for you.
Okay.
I can assure you of that.
Okay, thank you.
What town are you in, Taylor?
I'm sorry?
What town do you live in?
Oh, I'm born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes. Okay, up next is Matt Bilsey, I think it's Bilsey Davo.
So hi, everybody. My name is Matt Villardevo. I am. It's a mouthful, and my handwriting is awful.
I understand.
So, yeah, I'm from Fort Mill, South Carolina. Oh boy, I mean, so I've done a lot in my 50 years, and I don't want to get the Citizen Kane going, but my journey really to where I'm at now started with music. I was raised in a family where we weren't taught to respect people of different races and cultures, and you know, gay people were always the F word, that kind of thing. Well, I was a big metalhead and hip hop fan in the 70s and 80s. And so I started listening to this band Anthrax, who turned me on to Public Enemy. And the rest is history from there. So I, you know, as I got older, hit 18, I was big into Bill Clinton, working the phone banks for Bill, knocking doors. And then started listening to Rage Against the Machine and became a lot more like radicalized. And when I was in college at Central Florida, I worked for an organization called the SPLC. They had this group called Operation Klan Watch. So I would protest against the Klan and neo-Nazis, and I would attend neo-Nazi concerts because, as you all can tell, it's probably easy for me to fit in. College ends, get my political science degree. I've been working as an engineer in these blue-collar, toxic, lethal environments my whole life. Power plants, cement factories. It's cost me my hearing. I'm already in hearing aids at 50. But I've always stayed socially active, politically involved. I ran for town council in Fort Mill after moving there from Tampa in 2021. Got my ass kicked, ran for state house for SC 26 in 2022 against a woman named Ray Felder. Also got my ass handed to me. Now I'm running again in 2024 for SC 26. Ray's retiring, so the race is a lot more winnable for me. I need to fix the things I couldn't fix as being new to South Carolina. One of them's learning more about the history, getting more ingrained with the real culture of this state. And anything that my man Brandon Upson's a part of, I need to be a part of. Brandon was there for me when I ran in 2022, went knocking doors for me in the Black community in Fort Mill, and was always supportive of me every step of the way in my political journey. And he's 12 years younger than me, and I take advice and mentorship from this young man. So if y'all get a chance in this class, talk to Brandon. He's got it a lot figured out. So thanks a lot for everybody for putting up with me in advance. And I'm really grateful to be here.
Okay, up next, I believe this is, I think this is, Gwen Walter? Or is it Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen.
Gwen.
Hello, my name is Gwen Walter. I am from Sumter, South Carolina, but because of my activities with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, I'm basically in Columbia all the time. I'm here because I want to get in touch with people's history, basically. I want to become a better activist, a better speaker in front of people, especially, and just communicate with like-minded people and just become ready to create the change that I want to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Cheryl Soul. Cheryl Soul.
I'll try to speak up, but I have a medical condition that makes my voice really soft. I grew up here in South Carolina, ran away when I could to go to college somewhere else and thought I would never come back. But I'm here and just trying to reduce my ignorance and be a better activist. And I'm terrified by people like Ron DeSantis, who is currently destroying my alma mater. New College of Florida. It's a story I won't get into, but I need to do more with the time I have. I'm ignorant.
No, I think, Brett, we should use that slogan for next time. Okay, up next is Nick Rubin.
Hello, everybody. I think I know quite a few of you already. But my name's Nick Rubin. I hail from Charleston, South Carolina, North Charleston specifically, but from Anderson, in South Carolina. Most of my life, been a part of a lot of good causes through that time, which is how I know some of y'all already. But I'm also the co-director of the Charleston Workers Center, which is a project of the Charleston Alliance for Fair Employment. So I'll just take this opportunity to say, if anyone is in the Charleston area during the school, we're gonna have a satellite campus at the Workers Center. Yeah. Y'all just come on by. We'll do this down here in Charleston too, or here in Charleston. Why I'm doing this, I'm not sure I could say more eloquently than a lot of people that came before me, but I am excited about being in community with like-minded people and building projects and capacity in South Carolina, because we are not outnumbered here. We are out organized, and Amen. Getting together in spaces like this is how we fight that. Thank you.
I want to thank Nick for coming up. We've been working together for a long time now. We feel we've kind of got to the top and we're peeking over, but we need help. And Nick has broken the egg to make this omelet that I've been wanting to do since we started the school, which is having a simulcast from a location where people can come and go to school, but also solidify their local community. And so Nick and Cafe and the Workers Center are going to be hosting a live broadcast of the school for the next 14 Mondays at the Longshoremen's Hall on Morrison Drive. So any of you out there in Zoomland or in Charleston or in this room in Charleston or Somerville or, within driving distance of Charleston, get in touch with Nick. If you can't find Nick, get in touch with me. Thank you, Nick.
Yep. Up next is Todd Simon.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Simon. I am a native of Columbia, South Carolina. My background is in finance and banking for over 2 decades. So currently I'm the managing partner of the Simon Ray Group. We focus on commercial and residential lending. And so the focus in which I run my team is to take the steps to close the wealth gap.
Mhm.
And when you're dealing in finance, that's one of the hardest parts when you're dealing in our community, is really having a transparent conversation that leads to first using real estate to solidify your financial foundation, but also understanding how to use it to build generational wealth. So I'm here as a neighbor. I mean, I grew up in Greenview subdivision, which is like less than 10 minutes away from here. And the thing that really pissed me off, I didn't say pissed off, right? Okay, cool.
The unmarked.
Oh, yeah. So one of the thing that really pissed me off is the fact that I never learned about her in school, public school here. No mention of a lot of not only her, but everybody else that did something substantial in my community. I never learned about it, ever. And so as I started to think about how I want to affect change, particularly from the financial sector, is I have to be a servant leader first, but two, I have to know whose shoulders I stand on. Right? And so if I can do that and also come alongside like-minded individuals, then we can truly affect change, but also, in Martin Luther King's words, not really civil rights, but silver rights. How can we get this money? How can we really affect change? Stand up and make sure that our voices is heard in the community, not by just, protesting, but how can we put some finance behind that? How can we start to own the buildings that we do these meetings in? How can we, how can we build together and build a co-op? How can we start to deal with the, I'm almost on the soap, I'm gonna get off Brad, I'm sorry. How can we start to really talk about doing things for our community if we don't own anything? And so that's my goal here, is just to really, be a vessel. I'm loving the energy that's here. And I'm so excited to be here. So thank you guys so much.
So to kind of give you a little morsel of where we're going with the class, one of the things we talk about in the Jefferson Simkins School is the South Carolina Land Commission, which was an attempt by the state government to give people land during the Reconstruction period. We're the only state in the country that actually basically tried to do 40 acres and a mule. And we'll be getting more to that later on in the semester. So again, what you're talking about here is, again, very important to the broader lesson of the school. And also one other thing too, I even found my students at Claflin now in 2024, I will ask them, were you ever taught about Modjeska Simkins before you got to my classroom? And they'll say no. And that's deeply disturbing to me. Not just her, but a variety of other figures from this district. And again, that's why I both enjoy doing the school and also find that as years go by, the school takes on an increased urgency as well. Up next is Stephanie Marone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Marone, and I'm a retired social studies teacher. I taught middle school for decades, and then my husband and I grew up in Chicago. I raised my children and spent my adult life in Northern Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. So I've only been a South Carolinian for 3 years, but I'm here forever now. And I want to learn more about this state because I believe in a lifetime of learning. And I'm an activist. I have had a history of working for different progressive causes. And so I'm here to connect with my people. So thank you for having me.
Okay, Kim Gosney.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim, and I am a transplant from California who ended up here because I have a family member with cancer that I'm helping with. And so this is my second time taking the class, and I'm here mostly just because I need my people. So that's all.
Ashley Rivers.
Hi, I'm Ashley Rivers. I'm from here. A friend of mine told me about this and thought that it would be something that I'd be really interested in doing. And I like to stay engaged and aware of history, and we didn't get it in school. We got some, obviously, but a lot of South Carolina history was just whitewashed. So I'm here to get more backgrounds. I can be more engaged in the community, and I'm really grateful this school is here, and I'm grateful to be here.
Next is Breton Young.
Hey, I'm Bratton. The boys down at the bureau sent me to check that out.
Look forward to our first date.
No, I've been a labor activist for a few years, and in many other causes as well. The thing that I've always paid attention to is that I spent a lot of years learning by proximity from people who either went through this school or knew Modjeska Simkins or had some relation somehow to this address or one of the other previous addresses of the South Carolina Progressive Network. And I felt like it was definitely overdue that I actually went through this school myself, and got some of the really important history and context that's going to be discussed here. So hope to continue to make some trouble here in South Carolina and use what I learned here to make that happen.
Like I said before, if you're with the FBI or SLED, don't hesitate to let us know.
It's the only way I can remember what I did 30 years ago.
All right, next is Nicole Sanchez.
Hi there, I am Nicole Sanchez. I moved from Pennsylvania to South Carolina 4 years ago, and I do a lot of work in electoral reform because the system is rigged against us, and if we don't fix that, we can't really fix very much else. So I'm here because I want to learn more of South Carolina. I want to be a better activist in South Carolina and do the work.
All right. If you are interested in electoral reform, you are definitely in the right place. Before we go to Zoom, is there anyone else in the room who has not introduced himself or herself yet? Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Deborah Dunbar, and I'm from Sumter, South Carolina. I'm originally from New York. I came here to South Carolina in the year of 2000. I fell in love with South Carolina, but as the years went by, I really didn't like South Carolina. But I wasn't liking it because of the things that I've been experiencing. So I wanted to become an activist. And my vision, I'm from a small historical town, which really nobody knows is historical for real, called Horatio, South Carolina, in Sumter. And my family is originally from there. And a lot of things happened, like with the Civil War and Thomas Sumter tomb is all, I live right like 4 acres, I guess, away from Thomas Sumter tomb. And I just didn't understand. So one of the visions I have is that I wanted to bring an African-American museum to Sumter, South Carolina. Wow. I'm going to retire in about 2 years. And I said, that's my vision, what I want to do is start this African-American museum. But how am I going to do this here if I don't know enough about South Carolina? Right. So just like, and I've been just doing this here the last couple of years thinking about it. And just a couple of weeks ago, I get a magazine, a newsletter on the internet. And it had this here article in it about the school. I said, well, here's my chance. And I'm gonna apply and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna learn about South Carolina. And so I can, when I do my museum, that the important things that I need to know will be in this museum because I don't know about South Carolina, at least as much as Dr. Green is gonna give me. But I also wanted to say, I heard you say email. I never received the email. I just showed up here. You have a Gmail? Gmail? Yes, I have a Gmail.
Check your updates or your updates tab.
Okay.
Because mine didn't come to my primary, it came to updates.
All right, then I sure will.
Yeah. Let me just say, I'm Becky, and I'm kind of trying to get everybody swept up into one neat little file, and it's not that simple. But I'd say I was going to mention it just now that somebody brought it up, let me just say that this is the second person that I've heard that didn't get the last couple emails. So if you haven't, give me a business card or make sure that I have your information before you leave, and we'll make sure we get that straight.
Okay, thank you.
All right, excellent. So we're going to go ahead now and have the folks from Zoom land introduce themselves, and the rules are same for you as well. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what brings you to the Modjeska Simkins School for 2024. And I'll call your name, and please, two things, make sure to unmute yourselves. And if you can, please also turn on your camera so we can see you as well. First up is Tina Escobar.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm Tina Escobar. I'm from.
Uh-oh, oh no, we just lost you. Unmute yourself again, please.
How's this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm Tina Escobar. I'm from Chicago. I'm in Chicago. I've been involved in progressive things since I was a child, and I'm 74 now. So there's been a lot of stuff, including labor movement things, health things. I'm a nurse, and I was a school nurse a long time too. But my son married a young woman from she's not they're middle aged now, but she's from South Carolina, and she's got family all over South Carolina and many of the cities that you guys mentioned, and she's part of us now and we're part of her. So I really wanted to be part of this group, and I'm excited to learn the history that I don't know, and I'm excited to participate. So there you go.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, up next is Jenna Rathel White.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Gina Rathel White. I'm from Lancaster County. I was actually born in Southern Alabama, but moved to Lancaster the summer before third grade and have been there ever since. I was an educator, retired after 20 years of teaching, and became politically active after retiring because that was something that I was discouraged from doing as a teacher. And with the Lancaster County Democratic Party now, and was encouraged to join this class from Keith Gray Sr. He really bragged about the coursework here. And I know that as a student in Lancaster County and then as a teacher in Lancaster County, there's so many things that we weren't taught. And to be a better activist, I want to know the true history of South Carolina.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. Up next, Alexis King. Alexis King.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis. I was born in Texas, but I was raised in Fort Mill, South Carolina. I attended the University of South Carolina and studied history with AD. I went back, got my paralegal certificate. I currently work as a paralegal. I'm very far from my roots. In high school, I was a canvasser. I would protest, do a lot of marches, and the law firm I work at, I'll just say it doesn't necessarily agree with my beliefs and what I feel I should be doing with my life. So I just want to get back to my roots and brush up on my history a bit.
Thank you. All right. Up next is Chris Sally. Chris Sally.
Let me point out that Chris Sally is a board member, and I started and introduce you, Chris.
No worries at all, Brett. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Sally. I am born and raised and currently located here in Anderson, South Carolina. Oh, I forgot to introduce him. This is LB. This is my logo. So who am I? I am a board member here at the Progressive Network. I'm a goat farmer, pig and goat farmer here in Anderson, South Carolina, and I also just get into a lot of good trouble. And so I ran for State House in 2022, so that's how I know Matt Villardo and Keith. Brandon also supported me during that run. After that, I was chair of the Anderson County Democratic Party last year for a few months. And so I've really, as a lot of people have said, I've wanted to be rooted in the now and make sure that I'm able to make a difference. But also, sadly, we weren't taught about this in school. I was a big history buff. And so I think that's where I was like, why am I here? I really want to be rooted in that history and make sure that everything I'm doing now is like, make sure is as effective as possible.
Okay. Next is Adrienne Edwards.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrian Edwards. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Came to South Carolina via Mobile, Alabama. I have been an community activist in Mobile. I work with the homeless community, the youth. I am a grandmother. That's why I'm not in the building. She's whining, but I just about the history of South Carolina in network, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you. And she just wanted to say hello. There she goes.
All right, next is Tabria Barnes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hey y'all, I'm Tabria Barnes. I'm 16 years old. And I think I'm the only 16-year old. But currently I live in Fort Mill. I go to Catawba Ridge in Fort Mill, but I was raised in Lancaster near the Beaufort area. And I'm currently actually taking AP US history right now. And I was recommended to do this by Mr. Gray. I'm active in our NAACP Youth Council. And as someone that wants to go into African American studies and be able to teach African American studies and other history, I thought doing something like this would not only get me politically active, but also, you know, I can learn stuff that I don't learn in an AP US history class.
Can we bring her back up real quick? Can I talk directly to her? Go ahead. Hey, Tabria.
Yes, sir.
My daughter goes to high school with you, and she ain't even close to doing all the things you are to make the world a better place. So thank you. We'll be in touch.
Well, and I do want to say too, again, you know, the Modjeska Simkins School is open to everyone, but we really do need more young people in that school because they're going to be the ones who are going to continue this fight on for the next generation. I know that a lot of folks in the media will say, oh, you know, Generation Z, they're going to be the ones who leave behind racism and say, no, it's not as simple as they're just young people. They're young folks who are willing to learn, who are ready to learn. And we have to be there to cultivate that learning in all of them. So Tabria, folks like her are really a godsend.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Up next is Suzanne Swan.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yep. Awesome. Hi, I'm Suzanne Swan. I'm actually here in the car with I could let him introduce himself too, or we had to leave town today. But I'm originally from Alabama, and my family's from Louisiana. I grew up in Alabama. Years.
Suzanne, turn your video off. Your signal's weak and it'll be stronger. We can hear you if you turn your video.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just really excited to learn the history of the state. I learned a very sanitized version of history growing up, and you know, the more I learned, the more I realized what I didn't learn and what I should know. So we decided to do this together. So this is kind of like, I guess, a gift for each other. And do you want me to go ahead and let Brett introduce himself? Would that be all right?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, here's Brett.
Hi, I'm Brett Cluse. Like Suzanne said, we met in Illinois, moved to Connecticut. Now we've been in South Carolina for almost 21 years. And I have been concerned about lots of things in the news, but I haven't been as active as I was when I was younger. So it feels like it's time to do that. This is a great opportunity. Really excited to connect with people. Look forward to being there. We unfortunately won't be there on Monday, but we should be there the Mondays after.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Up, yes, please. Okay, next is Rose Hasuna.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rose Hasune. I am from Charleston, but I currently go to USC and undergrad there in Columbia. And I'm a part of Party of Socialism and Liberation, and that's how I was introduced to this school. I would say I feel like education is at the forefront of all of these movements and organizing, and I feel like it's most important in these aspects. So I'm excited to learn. I feel like our own education system kind of fails us a little bit. So I'm hoping through this I can get like the full truth and be able to truly understand what I'm advocating for.
Excellent, thank you. Finally, in Zoom land, we have Anjanette Hart. And Jeanette, go ahead, please.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
And so, as a woman of faith, I want to start with the scripture that I go by as an activist, Micah 6:8. It says, the Lord tells us how he wants us to love him and love our neighbor. And it is to act justly, love mercifully, and walk humbly with him. And so, yeah, my name is Anjanette Harp. And I've been actively doing this organizing work for a very long time. It's so nice to see Dr. Green still doing what he does. And I currently serve as vice president of an International Women's Council organization. It is a faith-based organization. And I am the vice president of the social justice arm of the organization. And like many of you here, some of you I've heard, and so I am too. I am very appalled at what's going on, how we've declined so much from the Obama time and then all the way back to Modjeska Simkins time. And so I'm here to really learn how she did everything that she did. I've been in and out of this group, and I finally have enough time right now, I think, to really learn and just see how she did everything that she did, and see if we could see if I could garner some of that to do all that I'm doing. I do want to mention that with the group that we do, the women internationally and in countries, I have a motto of how do we get the women and girls active and engaged. We heard the young ladies, the 16-year-olds, so that's great. I like seeing that. And so that's what I'm here for. I'm, it's a lot going on. I'm appalled at the decline, and I want to learn how Modjeska Simkins did what she did. Thank you.
And I suppose it is only fair that I give everyone in the room my introduction as well. I am Dr. Robert Green II. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an assistant professor of history at Claflin University in Orangeburg, South Carolina. I actually live here in Casey, South Carolina. I received my PhD from the University of South Carolina in 2019, and my life has not been the same since I moved here in 2012 to begin that doctoral program. I'm actually from Augusta, Georgia originally, which is, just across the border in Georgia. And I've been doing the Modjeska Simkins School since 2019. This is my 6th year leading it. And of course, in those 6 years, a lot has happened. The school itself predates that. The school dates back to 2015, memory serves. And of course, we have seen a lot of tremendous change, both in this state, in the country, and around the world. Now, I was telling Chris here earlier before we began the class this afternoon that it seems that every year we do the Modjeska Simkins School, the school seems to take on a greater urgency in terms of the lessons that we're doing. And while I am sort of joking, I'm also being quite serious here. From a global perspective, we have multiple major wars going on. We have a war between Russia and Ukraine. We have the Israeli invasion of Gaza going on as we speak. We have numerous crises in Africa and the Caribbean. And of course, on our own border with Mexico, we have a growing humanitarian crisis as well. In addition to all of that, this year is, of course, an election year. And it seems that every election cycle I can recall since at least 2000 has been the most important election of my lifetime. Unfortunately, that is no longer just media hype. It does seem as though democracy as we know it really is on the ballot this time. One of my closest friends, a friend of mine I made when I was in college, we've been friends for 20 years now. My friend Joe, he was a postdoc in biology in Uruguay for a few years. And on January 6, 2021, he gave me a phone call via the WhatsApp on my phone. And normally we talk on the weekends, but he had to call me because he said he was in Uruguay watching what was happening at the US Capitol, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I talked to my dad that same evening. I talked to my parents every night. My father served in the Army for 20 years. My grandfather served in the Army for 20 years. I have a lot of uncles who did service in the Army or the Navy, which makes family gatherings pretty interesting. My dad couldn't believe what he was watching, nor could my mother. And both of them, by the way, grew up at the tail end of Jim Crow segregation. So they both know how bad things can actually get in this country. And yet even they couldn't imagine what they were watching. The Modjeska Simkins School is something that I take a lot of pride in. I've been fortunate to teach at Claflin and HBCU for several years. I was just Wednesday, I was given this award. I won it a few years ago, but I'll just show it to the folks in the room. Back in 2021, the Post and Courier named me one of the 12 Black leaders to know in South Carolina. Like a fun thing, but it's not the most important thing. It's nice to know people appreciate what you do. But when I was at that luncheon on Wednesday, it occurred to me that all the folks in that room and all the folks in this room are continuing a battle that has been raging in this state, in this country for centuries. The battle to determine what sort of country we are going to be and whether or not we can actually live up to those ideals we claim to believe in. I'm going to just read you a brief quote from W.E.B. Du Bois, and we'll go to question and answers. This is from Du Bois's 1946 speech called Behold the Land. This is a speech that Brett mentioned earlier that Du Bois gave at the Southern Negro Youth Congress down at the Township Auditorium. He said, quote, "To rescue this land in this way calls for the great sacrifice. This is the thing that you are called upon to do because it is the right thing to do. Because you are embarked upon a great and holy crusade, the emancipation of mankind, Black and white, the upbuilding of democracy, the breaking down, particularly here in the South, of forces of evil represented by race prejudice in South Carolina, by lynching in Georgia, by disenfranchisement in Mississippi, by ignorance in Louisiana, and by all these in monopoly of wealth in the whole South. There could be no more splendid vocation beckoning to the youth of the 20th century after the flat failures of white civilization, after the flamboyant establishment of an industrial system which creates poverty and the children of poverty, which are ignorant and disease and crime, after the crazy boasting of a white culture that finally ended in wars which ruined civilization in the whole world, in the midst of allied peoples who have yelled about democracy and never practiced it either in the British Empire or in the American Commonwealth or in South Carolina. Here is the chance for young women and young men of devotion to lift again the banner of humanity and to walk toward a civilization which will be free and intelligent, which will be healthy and unafraid, and build in the world a culture led by Black folk and joined by peoples of all colors and all races, without poverty, ignorance, and disease. And I cannot think of a better summation of what this school is about, and we all hope to achieve together in 2024 and beyond.
Yes.
That's just a sample with the course. We'll discuss this speech more in depth and get to that part in the semester. But now, to shift gears, are there any questions? Any questions? Either from folks in the room or folks on Zoom. Any questions at all? And if you have a question on Zoom, the best way to ask it might be just write it in the chat. But any questions at all about the school, about the classes coming up? Any questions at all? Yes, go ahead, please.
Able to have access to the Zoom and be able to come in person if I want to?
Yes, yes, you will.
Okay, I don't have to just do one. I can come do both.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Look for an email every week that'll have the link to the Zoom, just so you have it, whether you've used it all the time or not, you can have that option if you're just not feeling well. You'll have a link to that study guide for that week, and information about any deep dives that are coming up so that you know, and a little bit about the speakers that'll be coming. So look for an email this afternoon or in the morning about the first class and the first deep dives with information about that. And again, if you have troubles getting your email, let me know. We'll figure it out.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, with us know or how I feel about just what I've heard already about the school, but during this time of educating us even more on the historical part of it, will there be a segment that we will focus on, how do we hit the ground more aggressively?
That's a great question. Brett, did you want to address that?
Well, I don't want to interrupt questions, but that was what I wanted to talk about in the closing. Is that we're going to practice what we've been preaching. And I want to mention my fundraiser, my financial friend here. The community bought this building. We put our homes up to do it, but this is community generational wealth. And my father was a sailor, he's a working class guy, but they gave each of their kids, I'm the oldest, the only boy, a piece of property for $23,000. 40 years ago, they gave a piece of property that we used to collateralize to buy this. That's generational wealth that I was able to pass on to the community.
Absolutely.
And so this is exactly what we need to be doing. And I'm working with a foundation that's been given money by the Fords and the Rockefellers and the Soroses and et cetera, to figure out how to democratize philanthropy. And this friend of mine who's running this foundation with, we talking about this in its beginning about 2 years ago, rolled our eyes about, yeah, these rich people are really going to let us democratize philanthropy. But what it amounts to is helping people figure out ways to become their own vendors. Like we pay thousands of dollars a year to get databases and stuff like that. We can start businesses. We can start LLCs or B Corps. But there's things that we can do to basically circle the wagons and ensure we get through this next coming hard time. The people that we're following, Modjeska was 1 year too young to vote for W.E.B. Du Bois in 1920, when he was in the federal penitentiary, when he was running for president of the United States of America. He was in jail because he was opposed to World War I. Some things don't change. And that's what we've got to figure out. We can't keep fixing the thing with the tools that keep it broken. We can't vote our way out of these problems. There's this thing called battleground states. You read the reason they call them battleground states? They're the only states where voting counts. They're kind of these 8 states or 10 states that changes every 4 years. So we've got to figure out a way to build the power outside the existing system to be able to be strong enough to change the system. And in terms of figuring out ways and tools to do that, that's exactly one of the reasons I'm stepping back, trying to stepping back from doing the forward-facing work of keeping all these balls in the air of the type of work that we've been doing, the Racial Justice Project, the Missing Voter Project, Money Out of Politics. We will get into at some point the fact that when we come up with some problem, we analyze a problem, we figure out a way to fix it, and we pass legislation. The Democrats aren't passing legislation. I've personally written legislation that's now it's at 4 websites at the state that compels everybody to do something. Like every cop in South Carolina now has to report everybody they stop and don't arrest on a monthly basis, the race, gender, and age of these people. Nobody's mining that. We don't have time and people and resources to let you know that in your street, you can look up all kinds of things. With our database, you can find out the people on your street that lied to you about voting. Wow. So we've got tremendous capability, but we don't have the human strength and the human ability to pull it off. And so Brandon is going to draw people like a magnet that are looking for something to do. And my job now is to work on the educational level. And the Modjeska School is going to be adding what we've been talking about since we started it, skill sessions. We've been doing a short course called Democracy 101, and democracy is now spelled D-E-M-O-C-R-A-S-C, democracy, and it still says democracy. But that you can use this short piece, like in an hour presentation, to be able to go to church, club, school, civic organization, or neighbors, and slap them up against the side of the head with what we call the wow factor, get their attention, and try and get them to understand that, in the words of Audre Lorde, we can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. The master ain't gonna give us the right tools to take his house down. They ain't gonna do it. So what do? We've got to figure out our own tools. And I think my comrade from Fort Mill, Matt, or it might have been the one behind you from Charleston. Somebody said there's more of us than there are them, and that sure is true. And but what the other flip side of that coin, the danger of that coin, is the less power people have. You know who they fight? Themselves. And the Democratic Party, Gilda Cobb Hunter and I started a progressive caucus of the Democratic Party in 2000. Black women are the largest constituency group in the Democratic Party. Gilda rules. We were able to, by 2006, control the floor of a state convention. And that to control the floor of a state convention, you have to have the votes to override the chair when he says, you're out of order. Challenge the chair, put the vote at the floor. 25% of the delegates, got 1,000 people, and 250 people have to stand up. They didn't put our resolution to oppose the anti-gay marriage amendment in the resolutions to pass as a platform, because they were afraid of, you know, oh my God, if we like gay people, the people we're trying to get to vote for us won't vote for us. Well, it was the Democratic, you know, the Democratic National Party was already there, but we put it to the floor. We didn't know what was going to happen. Everybody in the room stood up except the guys in charge. And so we keep finding out, let's see, we've got the hearts and minds of everybody, but the 170 people that are elected that want to hold their seat. And the Democrats are winning. Right now, the Democrats are winning close to 85% of them in the primaries with less than 14% of the vote. There's never been a primary in South Carolina that brought together more than 22% of both Republicans and Democrats. So you split that up, the Democrats are turning out 5 to 8% of their base, 5% to 8% of registered people that would vote for Democrats, and the Republicans will turn out maybe 13 to 16%. So that's ridiculous. There are more of us than them. The upside of the downside of our votes being diminished through gerrymandering and people being packed in is the vote turnout to lower and lower and lower and lower, which makes it easier and easier and easier for us to win in the blue counties and the blue towns. We can change that. So when we win something, we show people there is some hope in caring. That's our most important job. People don't care. This is another wonderful one. We have a t-shirt actually that says this. This is Alice Walker. The most common way people give up power is by thinking they don't have any. I was raised, my father told me, boy, you can't fight City Hall. And I felt that way when they had me in cuffs any number of times. But yeah, you can stand up and at least feel like you're doing something. And several people have commented, and Dr. Green so eloquently put it, It's not just we're in a hell of a mess. It's not just South Carolina in a hell of a mess. The whole damn planet's in a hell of a mess. The same damn problem that has been here ever since it's started. It's called greed. It's called greed. And that we now have so much to educate and teach people with. The healthcare system is completely dysfunctional, falling apart. And so there are these things that we can organize around. But we'll do skill sessions that we'll promote as before the school's over with. They will be able to sign up for a course on county politics, municipal politics, legislature. Brandon was executive director of the House Caucus. Director
Chief Strategy Officer. Chief Strategy Officer.
Close enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've both been close enough to the sausage to know how stinky it is, but also how to make it. And so one of the things we found out is that there's a difference we have to have in our heads between the government and the governments. The government, let's say, is the documents, the Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, that stuff. Hell, you know, they didn't get there. It was aspirational. It's a really good document. Ho Chi Minh used it when he started the country after World War II over there in Vietnam. And so that document, the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, has been cited by a lot of people that actually believe in democracy, except the people now that are in charge of the governance. Right. So the governance of the people that get elected in the election system is totally screwed on purpose for a reason, that the people that are winning make the rules. And so, we are supporting the government, but not the governance. But what I find out is the people that actually make the government work, the employees, most of them are on our side. I mean, I've got the guards at the sergeants at arms at the building at the State House whispering in my ear about the lunatics running the asylum. The Senate Judiciary Committee is a very, very powerful committee. They handle money and laws and stuff. And they like us more than they do the guys that tell them, because the guys that tell them don't really care about the job they're tasked with doing. So we can be subversive. And I think the way to do it in the coming season, the next 2 years, for a missing voter project, which you must take home, one of the brochures up on that table over there, because it is a plan that really will work. And it is a conspiracy. And so we've got DEMOCRASC and a CONSPIRASC, a conspiracy in South Carolina that will excite young people, targeting the young people that are voting to be our vanguard. Du Bois talked about the talented 10th way back when he started organizing before the NAACP. And our talented 10th now is the percentage of young Black voters between 18 and 26 that will vote in 2026. Every 4 years, there's one district, there's elections in one district that can't be gerrymandered. Does anybody know what district that can't be gerrymandered in South Carolina?
The state.
You don't cheat, Cecil.
The state. She's, yeah, it's the state, like.
Statewide.
Yeah.
Statewide.
Yeah.
And in the Constitution of 1895, Ben Tillman, because there were more Black people than there were white people in South Carolina, was absolutely terrified Black people could win a statewide election. They devolved the power down to the Senate. The Black people, Black South Carolinians, the only place in the nation that there was a legislative body that was majority Black was the House of Representatives in South Carolina, 1868 to 1877. And so that fear that Tillman had isn't the devolving the power down from the executive, that some of that power has gone back up to the governor, but they still can't gerrymander the state. The suppression of votes, by virtue of the fact that voting doesn't do any good for most people, fewer and fewer and fewer people are voting. If the average in the Black population, just in general, is about probably 62% of the Black population voting in a 4-year cycle. The white people, it's about 75, 80%. You can also track income. The more income you make, the more likely you are to vote. So you can see who that's working for. But what we have now is the idea that how do you get people to understand that this is a really hot item, that they could vote in 2026 to be able to decide in a statewide race who's the governor, who's the attorney general, who's the superintendent of education. Those 3 seats have been won the last 16 years by 182,000 votes. We've got the names and addresses going into this next next season, voting season in 2026, of about 130,000 young Black people under 26, and only 10% of them have voted. About 12,000 in the whole state. And I can give you the ones in your town that voted, and you can have a party and you can invite them standing up for that which it is that the parents and the grandparents fought, locked up, got bled for, got hung, and make them heroes. And clue them on the conspiracy to reconstruct democracy the way the Black legislature did in 1868. They can't stop us. There's more of us than there are there. We've got to give people hope that doing something, that caring can do some good. And we got a really solid plan. And we can give people on their phones or on their iPads the names and addresses of people they went to high school with. 90% of the people that are registered, most of the kids are registering, like 70 plus. Did you register to vote? Oh, yeah. Did you vote? Nobody knows. And so we can give the kids on their phone the names and addresses of the people they went to high school with that are registered, that maybe told them they voted, that didn't vote. I mean, these are kids that they graduated from high school with, smoked dope behind the gymnasium with, you know, they know them. It's better than me going and telling, hey, kids, I've got a great idea. People they know. And we can do that all over the state. And Brandon's going to do it. You don't have to leave. You folks in the room can stay and chat and have a beer or a pizza. And the people on Zoom continue to watch us and wish you were here.
Maybe the sing along as well.
We hope.
Was there any other questions? I think maybe.
Yeah.
First.
Any final question?
All right. Well,
this is important. It's written
this
on your.
is really, really important.
Very important. You can't have a revolution without a song.
And Chris said you guys in Zoom can't play because it screws with the audio, right?
Yeah, there's a latency issue, so the digital participants should just listen and not say.
So that's
great.
Taking along, but
See for those in your household.
so Chris is going to help me. Hey, he's really a fantastic musician, by the way. So you should come to jazz night some night. There's a calendar on the back that you should check out before we leave, or bookmark your website so that you can come do fun stuff other than just things that make you want to split your wrists. So this is our fight song. My dream is to have all the graduates someday show up at the State House and sing this. It's done in the round, and when it's done properly, it's really powerful. And if you had all of the graduates, what are we up to now? Like 300? Closing in on 300. If we could swarm the State House and do this, wow, that's my dream. Okay, so I'm gonna sing it, and Chris and I are gonna sing it together just a couple times, just so you get it, and then we'll sing it a couple times together, and then we'll split up, and it's magic when we do it in the round. All right, ready?
Yeah.
We have come too far, and we won't turn around. We'll flood the streets with justice. We are freedom bound. We have come too far. We won't turn around. We'll flood the streets with justice. We are freedom bound. Wow. Oh,
all right. Okay, that's not. Okay, so now. Yeah, they're great. They're great. All right, so everybody on this side of the room is going to sing with me. And then everybody on this side of the room is going to sing with Becky. So Becky, go ahead and start your group. 1, 2, ready, sing.
We have come too far and we won't turn around. We flood the streets with justice. We are freedom bound. We are free. We have come too far and we won't turn around. We are free from bound. We are free.
I hope we do wear everybody out, Dr. Green.
Well, again, this is, again, thank you so much for coming to our orientation today. We will see you again on Monday at 6:30, where we will be discussing Indigenous history in South Carolina and African history before the age of slavery. So again, looking forward to you joining us once again this coming Monday at 6:30.
And like I said, you don't have to leave unless you have to leave. We've got beverages of all sorts and some snacks, and Jason's going to get some pizza.
Yep, I'm 4 minutes away.
One heads up to the new people, when you start going through the reading material, there's a lot of scrolling in there, so don't wait until the day of the class.
Well, also, please note that there's more in there than you can possibly read. And there are things at the beginning of each study guide that says read or watch, and the rest is supplemental. Supplemental means you can learn more if you have time.
Will there be any kind of option for like between session discussions? So like we're reading something, we just want to, I don't know, discuss it before the class. I don't know how much of the class is discussion based, how much is like lecture based. So I'm just wondering. Like,
Every class has some discussion period.
Yeah.
And at the end of every class, there's a period. The class is in at 8:30, and we keep the mic open for people to come and talk.
Okay.
And so it depends on the intensity of that first 2 hours. We might wrap a little earlier, but there's always an opportunity to get to ask questions and make answers. That answer next?
Yeah.
Nick, if there was enough interest and you could talk amongst yourselves on your own, if there even 3 or 4 people want to do that, we can make this space available or do a Zoom, set up a Zoom for folks that want to do that, not connected to the class, because it's a long time, 2-hour class, they might be worn out, but might want to get together other time. Well, that's just an option.
Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while.
And I'm like, well, sure.